Due to her detention spent in the morgue, Poppy was not afraid of the half-corpse that rose from the ground beneath her. That is not to say it did not startle her. As soon as she had politely introduced herself, the half-corpse began rambling that he was not really dead, and that he did not really belong in the land of the dead. Through his rambling and disbelief of his own situation, Poppy heard him say that someone called Tibu Tomensky wanted to eat the moon. Now, we all know that nothing is funnier than a drunk Irishman, unless he is a drunk Irishman with a short temper. The circus ringmaster that Poppy met as she followed the crow was certainly that. He was gabbling and shaking his fist about a clown who had once run away from his circus. The clown's name was Bowleg. Evil Uncle Bowleg's frightful appearance meant that children did not laugh at him. Because children did not laugh at him, he grew heartless and despised them. It is not clear whether it was Bowleg's running away from the circus or the constant booze that caused the hot-headed Irish ringmaster's stroke and resulting death. But it is clear with whom he placed the blame. Through his angry and bitter rumblings, Poppy heard him grumble that someone called Tibu Tomensky wanted to eat the moon. Perhaps now is the best time to explain something about the land of the dead. Nothing with a pulse can live there. If they could, it probably wouldn't be called the land of the dead. And as such, Poppy began to slowly age and fade away to the quality of a shadow. But as long as someone remembered her, it was impossible to fade to nothing. As she drifted, old and withered, she sought a place to contemplate. This brought her to a deserted old mill. Above her, the moon rested between the trees. Poppy looked up at the half-eaten moon and saw the ghost of Tibu Tomensky. It became very clear very quickly that he had a massive appetite, and the only thing big enough to satisfy this appetite was the moon. But without the moon, the land of the dead would plunge into eternal darkness, and Poppy was sure her father would not find his way home. And so, she offered herself as a snack instead. Like walking the plank on a sinking ship, her fate seemed inevitable. She bravely closed her eyes and waited. When she opened her eyes, Poppy was somewhat surprised that she had not been gobbled up by Tibu Tomensky. Instead, his ghost had vanished, and a puppeteer stood in front of her. But it was his puppet that spoke to her. Her willingness to sacrifice herself to help her father had moved him. But he explained that what is must be, and that Poppy must have the courage to accept the things she cannot change. The puppeteer pulled the strings in the land of the dead, and so he banned Tibu Tomensky from eating for eternity. But Poppy would have to leave the land of the dead, and therefore her father behind. As the bright moon began to set, the crow with the curious scar carried Poppy's frail and weightless soul up to the highest tower on the highest mountain and ripped a hole in the sky. Poppy woke up in her bed, in her room, on Christmas Day. Her appearance was as young as it ever was, and she began to wonder if anything had really happened. That was until she saw that the snow globe her father had given her now had a small crack above the highest tower on the highest mountain. Poppy knew that the cold knots of pain in her stomach would always be there, but would one day be accompanied by the warm memories of her father sitting on her bed. She knew that some days would be harder than others. Maybe one day an answer, or even a solution would present itself, or maybe it wouldn't. But Poppy drew strength from the fact that whilst she was in the land of the dead, her soul did not turn to ashes. This meant that someone must have remembered her, as forgotten souls cannot exist in the land of the dead. Someone somewhere must have loved her, and must still love her more than ever. What about evil Uncle Bowleg, I hear you ask? Well, the thing about a drunk Irish ringmaster with a short temper is that he won't forget a clown that ran away. Thus, evil Uncle Bowleg was dragged down, 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 and spent the rest of eternity and oblivion as a jack-in-the-box.